Hello, Augies Worldwide. I'm Dave Castler, amateur radio call sign KE0OG, here with another episode of Ask Dave. Today our question comes from Clayton Watts, KE0TJW. Now, he says, well, I have a serious problem. I live in an apartment complex, and it's 2 stories, and it sounds like he's on the 2nd floor, and he has ground problems. He can't put in a ground rod. So what do? I have a Yaesu FT991A. It's going through a duplexer to ATAS 120 and an ATBK 100. The Yaesu radio he's got, 991A, is capable of operating both on HF as well as VHF/UHF. So it does all the HF bands, including 6 meters, plus it also does 2 meters and 70 centimeters. And it will do FM on 10 meters, 6 meters, 2 meters, and 70 centimeters. But there's very little. There's very little 10 meter activity on FM. So you would be using it for single sideband. Now on 6 meters, there's very little FM activity. There is some. And on single sideband, there's something called, euphemistically, weak signal work. It means anything other than FM. Okay, so there's every other mode, including FT8. Now you can do the same thing on 2 meters and 70 centimeters. Do the FT8 on those frequencies. Now, FM is strongly represented on 2 meters and 70 centimeters. But there's still other types of activities up there that are not FM. Now, I mention that because an antenna for FM needs to be vertical, because FM is universally done with vertical polarization. But if you're going to do the other modes, generally they're done with horizontal polarization. So you end up needing 2 antennas. Now you mentioned the ATAS 120, which I think is well, let's just take a look. Dash 100. Okay, I've looked this up now. The ATAS 120 is a screwdriver type antenna that will tune from 40 meters all the way up to 70 centimeters. And the ATBK is a kit that goes with that will provide some radials. And he has it on a balcony mount with a counterpoise kit. And he doesn't say what kind of problems he's running into, but I'm guessing he's running into problems either with noise, a lot of noise, or he's running into problems where he's getting RF in the shack, and as he transmits, it comes back in and causes kinds of unexpected behavior. Okay, so either way, you got to get a ground somehow. You say that you're located on the 2nd floor of the apartment. I'm wondering, in certain places, most apartment buildings are only 2 floors. I know this is true in a lot of parts of California, but in other areas it can be 3 and 4 floors. You can talk to your building superintendent and see if there's a good way that you can get a ground. For example, find out if the water pipes are copper. If they are, you can almost use that as a counterpoise. You can get at it under the sink in your in a bathroom or in the kitchen. The copper pipe actually comes out of the wall a little bit before it hits the faucet, and you connect a ground there. Because even though it's a plastic water main, you still got the whole building that can act as a counterpoise. You got to be a little careful, though. You don't want to electrify the copper in the building, or you can cause shocks to yourself and to people in adjacent units. But it should be able to act as a pretty good counterpoise if it's attached to your ground. And you also attach the antenna tuner ground for something like that. Now you can also try with the counterpoise. Try moving that counterpoise around drastically, shortening it, lengthening, putting it in different rooms, wherever it might have to be. Now you don't need much of a counterpoise for 10, 6, 70 centimeters or 2 meters. It can work pretty well either way you do that. Now, as a last resort, ask your building manager if you can run a ground rod outside of one of your windows or a hole next to it, down to a ground rod, down at the bottom of the, just right outside your apartment on the back side, and tell them you make it white or whatever color the building is, so it won't show up very much. And it'd be good to, it may help you quite a bit. I mean, ideally we would put the antenna that you've got with, I assume there's a tuner associated with that, put that up on the roof. You'd be surprised, considering the antenna's not that big. You can mount it on something with a wooden base that's very carefully painted so it'll last quite a few years in the sun with exterior paint. And then put concrete blocks on it to hold it in place so it doesn't blow over in the wind. I did something like that when I was at the Bachelor Officers' Quarters at MacDill Air Force Base back in the late 70s when I was in the Air Force, and that worked very well. And I didn't need to go all the way down to ground to get the thing to work well. Now, if you have a new apartment complex, the piping inside the building is plastic. And that's not going to do you any good, because that tap water is a very poor conductor of electricity, and if the plumbing is all plastic, there's nothing that you can do with that there. So you almost have to see if you can go out and get a ground put in the area. You've got options that you can take to your building manager. One is that if the area behind your apartment happens to have a concrete something on it, you can pay a cement contractor to drill a hole in that so that you can get a ground rod down in there. I know this sounds terribly complicated, but one of those options may just give you what you need. If you do that, then you want to run the coax from the antenna and the associated tuner unit right with it all the way down to the ground rod, and then a slightly different, and put your lightning arrestor down there, slightly different path going up. And you can paint coax, paint it with outdoor paint so it's got UV protection, and you can make it so that it has very little effect on the aesthetics of the apartment. If you're lucky enough that there's a corner wall in there, you can run it right up the edge there in that corner, because then it won't show very much. There's just lots of things that you can do. So I will give you my rule number 1 of amateur radio. Persevere. Don't give up. Keep going. Keep trying. Get the new ARRL grounding book. It's the 2nd edition, and it's now available from the ARRL. Okay? So there you have it. Giveaway number 4 is coming up. And this is giveaway number 4 right here. It's an antenna. It's an antenna by Alpha Delta, and it's the model DXEE, and it has traps for 40 and 20, so it'll work on whichever half of the 40 meter band you select. You can select like the lower half so you can work FT8, you can select the upper half so you can do sideband. Then it covers all of 20, all of 15, and the important part of 10 meters. Okay, so it's got it's a fan dipole, plus it's the trapped dipole. It's a very nice antenna. They're kind of pricey. It's built like a Sherman tank. It is very, very sturdy. It has another advantage. It is only 40 feet long, and yet it will cover 40 meters. So, and it's got nice gray wire that's hard to see. This can be set up as an inverted V, even only 20 feet high, and so it'd be a great antenna in some HOAs that will allow limited antennas, but not the great big ones. I kind of like this antenna. This was one of the antennas that I considered to be the reference station antenna, but because it only covered part of 40 meters, it was not selected. It's still a fine antenna. Here's how you enter. Send a postcard, QSL card, or a simple envelope with a single sheet of paper in it. Send it to Dave Kassler, KE0OG, P.O. Box 98, Ridgeway, Colorado, 81432. Send to me the giveaway number, which is number 4, giveaway number 4. Okay, put your name, call sign, the address to which you want this mailed. It'll come via United States Postal Service, priority mail. And also include in there your phone number in case I need to get in touch with you. If you would like to support this channel financially, you can do so by going to dkassler.com/support and looking for a way there that works for you. Until we next meet, 73.